Do we have a copy for her or not? Okay. Can we email you the presentation or?
I have it,
Yeah.
but, yeah, I just kind of like to write on it, but that's okay, I'll figure it out.
Alright. So, we are beginning our first slide here with an inscription, or writing that was on the inside cover of my book. I bought this off Amazon. It's the second book about shamanism that I bought off Amazon that had something written by the author in it.
Wow.
So, I'm not going to try to mispronounce it, but it means hello all my relatives.
And the name of our book is Coyote Medicine, Lessons from Native American Healing by Louis Madrana, and he is an MD.
I should say just a little bit more about him first. The opening couple chapters or whatever, it talks about how he was kind of going through trying to figure out what he believed in, and read like the entire Bible at the age of 10 or something, and when he was 12 he's reading like Soren Kierkegaard and getting into existentialism, and had kind of a traumatic childhood with an abusive stepfather, but through all of this, he's just been basically a genius his entire life. He was the youngest person to ever graduate Stanford Medical School, and he's part of that. He's just been young his whole life with his peers, and just outstandingly smart guy.
Which is ironic in a certain way because he was able to write the book in a very friendly, personable tone, and he wasn't the expert writing to the rest of us. It was very friendly, it was very easy to read. I read half of it in a weekend, couldn't get enough of it, so don't want that scary book.
Yeah.
Some of the main points we just kind of grabbed from the text throughout the process. One of the main ones is really the intention for healing, the idea that, and some other people have addressed this as well, if the person who is ill believes they will heal, they will heal. It's really that personal belief system, regardless of what the healer is bringing to the table. And for him, this whole process, like Linnea said, is and was a personal quest. He didn't quite know who he was, what he was going to be when he grows up, all those different pieces. And he kind of identified those three pieces as the first three opening chapters. Why are you here? Where did you come from? And who are you? And for him, that was kind of the continued theme throughout the book. He continued to readdress those to identify his own issues, to identify how he was becoming a doctor, how he was becoming a healer, how he was reconnecting with his Native American roots, and then passing a lot of that information on to the clients that he worked with.
He grew up half Native American and not really knowing a lot about that. His grandparents were pretty into their culture, and so he had some experiences with that, and his grandma or somebody was a healer?
His grandma.
His grandma, yeah. But she had died earlier on in his life, so by the time he was getting to medical school, he couldn't go and talk to her. But yeah, he was in like his first residency, went to his first sweat lodge, and it wasn't from his tribe, but a friend of his in medical school. And so he was really kind of just beginning to explore his own roots at the same time he was going through his residency. But during the first sweat that he went to, it just really lit a fire in him that this is something he needs to get in touch with. This is something incredibly powerful, and as he's studying medicine, learning about the spirit healing that's going on at the sweat lodges was just kind of took on like a parallel walk with his walk through residency.
It just fit for him, and it made sense to explore it. As a healer, he found that storytelling is a means for healing, and he saw it in practice when he went to different ceremonies, and then once he started working with clients in different capacities, he used a lot of stories, he used a lot of parables, he used a lot of legends, sorry. just different analogies to help you really hone in on not just what the overarching theme is, but how this relates to you personally. And so if he's talking in all Native American stories involve a lot of animals, like coyote and different birds and different things. And so he would say, you know, and which of those characters are you in this story, and how come, and all those different things, and really tie it back to you, so it's not just this cute little story, it's this personal story.
It's kind of it's a really cool way. He would try telling stories to different patients that he was having, and people would tell him stories as he was trying to learn. And it's a nice way of presenting a story without naming who you are or how you are being. And then at the end, everybody always wants to know, well, what does that mean? And no, the storyteller always refuses to answer that, because that's not the point of telling the story. The point of the story is, what are you getting out of it? And a lot of the stories he tells, the role of the coyote in nature, the mischief maker, someone that's always stirring the pot, asking questions that, why are you asking that? That's who he is. That is his identity. He goes into situations and asks doctors, are you sure you want to have this woman deliver right now? Because I think there's 2 babies and she's just big because she's 2 babies, not because she's full term. And it's like, so that's just really, coyote medicine is about him. That's the stories that kind of taught him about who he is.
And shaped his career at
Yeah.
the same time. Oh, you kind of touched on that, right?
Oh, sure. So he started off doing a study on home births, and he collected data as he would go to different facilities, and he was kind of started off saying home birth is the way to go, it's the way to be, it's the best. And he learned some personal experiences that it's not always the best, but he did come out with a huge study that he got on the Today Show and like a couple other mainstream media shows for. It's like over 1,000 women, and it showed incredible differences in basically the different troubles that occurred during pregnancy or during the birthing process, whether or not the woman was in home or in the hospital. And there was just a lot more complications with hospital births. And it was really striking and got a lot of attention, and it got him kicked out of his residency because, you know, he thought, I have great research I've done, I'm going to show everybody. And they said, you just made your placement facility look bad. You made the medical school, you broke this relationship. And so he's like trying to be out there, making a difference, changing people's lives, helping people. And he was questioning the system. And that was his problem. That was his problem. The entire process.
Because he was so young as an academic, he was
Yeah.
incredibly idealistic, which is great. Unfortunately, he was bucking the system in every capacity. The old school medical model didn't work for him, so he asked the questions, and he picked on the doctors, why are you doing it this way? What about this? Can't we do it better and different? And it got him kicked out of multiple jobs, multiple residencies. His medical education took him 2 times longer, 3 times longer, because of some of these processes, because he had to start and stop and start and stop and start and stop, because he got kicked out over and over and over again, and had to recreate the wheel and decide, is this still my journey, or do I just say to heck with it? And for a while he dropped medicine completely and became a licensed psychologist, because he thought that would be easier. Maybe I can find and help people in this way and not so much the traditional medical model. And he was successful in that capacity as well, and then did go on to eventually finish his medical degree as well.
I was just for good minute.
Even when he tried to find facilities that were more holistic, where he could bring in some of the Native American traditions, he found that holistic was more in quotes. It was in name only, but not in actuality, and there was still a lot of bucking of the system. This is stuff that we don't traditionally do. We can't support this. This is odd. And so, you know, he found a facility that he thought would work really well with his practices and his beliefs, and once again was shot down, unfortunately. So in the end, he does create some of his own facilities. So he finds a way around it.
But it took him, you know, like 20 years or
Many
something to do it. Many years. So, we he interviewed a woman named Carrie Owen, who is a person that I know personally. She is a good friend of my mom's. And I don't know, I've mentioned before,